Africa has 130 million child brides, girls under the age of 18 who are already married, and adult women who are married as children according to the United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF marked this year's Day of the African Child by calling on African governments and regional institutions to end child marriage. So the question remains, what can be done to end the practice, especially since child marriage is so prevalent across the continent, with the highest levels in the Sahel and in pockets of Central and Eastern Africa. Some non-governmental organizations believe ensuring greater access to quality education for girls is the answer to ending this. The NGOs feel the girls won't be trapped in poverty due to social norms and obligations. But is a recent move to outlaw marriage for underage girls by several African nations the solution? Are getting married at a young age and access to education mutually exclusive? We'll discuss this and more on this week's edition of Our Voices. Hello, I'm Amina Aliyu, and this is Our Voices. Child marriage is a reality that is very much alive in certain communities worldwide and in various parts of Africa. According to the United Nations, 9 out of 10 countries with the highest levels of child marriage in the world are in sub-Saharan Africa, including Niger, Chad, Mozambique, Burkina Faso, South Sudan, Guinea, to name a few, and my own country, Nigeria. The Nigerian Child Rights Act of 2003 set the minimum age of marriage at 18 years of age, but as of March 2013, only 23 of Nigeria's 36 states have adopted the act, especially states with Islamic legal systems. VOA's Samuel Okocha visited the streets of Lagos, Nigeria to hear opinions on child marriage.
Marriage is a whole lot of things. So I think 20 years of age, it's good. I'm not saying like good, but it's okay for someone to get married at 20 years of age. So you have to be physically ready, emotionally ready, because marriage is a lot of things to get into. So also to ensure if someone is at a certain age to get married, he has to be physically ready and financially stable as well. Personally, I feel if marriage should be increased, like the age for girls, I feel it should be 21. Because at 21, at least you're mature enough. Because I feel personally 18 years a child. Nothing nobody wants to say my 18 years still a child. Then how should it be enforced? Like churches, mosques, court should not wear them. Once you come there and you're not up to 21, you should not be wedded. So if you now say, okay, yes, so I want to go and live with this man like that. So nobody wants to wed me. You're not married. You're just living with a man. And I feel she should also be punishable by law. Like the men that go to marry these girls that are under 21 should be punished.
Well, for now, I think the age for marriage for girls is 18 years at the moment in Nigeria legally. So for me, I feel that age is ripe enough and shouldn't even be raised at all. If for anything, the legal age of marriage should be reduced to 16 years. Because at 16, a girl is ready and she's matured enough to get married. In some other countries, the legal age of marriage is 16 years.
Now to Zimbabwe, where authorities say more than 1/3 of girls in the country are married before the age of 18, and in some areas, more than 50% are minors. Rights advocates are lauding a new law that criminalizes child marriage in Zimbabwe. Columbus Mavunga reports from Mbire.
19-year-old Portia Nobula is from the Mbire area near Zimbabwe's border with Zambia and Mozambique. She says she was raped at 15 on her way from school, became pregnant, and then was forced to marry her attacker.
Our marriage was never my will. I was forced by my parents. I was very brilliant at school, and I was messed up by men.
Her case is not unusual, say children's advocates.
The major cause of child marriages here is that children walk long distances to school, some 12 or 13 kilometers each way. So a child ends up leaving school, and since there is nothing like training in woodwork or sewing, she ends up being married.
Advocates and non-profit groups are working with the government to reduce child marriage in Mbire, in Mashonaland Central Province, where more than half the girls get married before they turn 18.
We are doing awareness campaigns at gatherings like these as one way to reduce the problem of child marriages. We do these campaigns with parents and girls, as well as teach them about their sexual and reproductive rights.
Traditional leaders are accused of promoting the practice or turning a blind eye to it. Chief Chitsungo, a traditional leader here, says he's punishing parents who marry off their children by fining them.
You take a child to the hospital when the child falls sick. It's the child's right. So we meet regularly with parents, and also there are non-governmental groups doing awareness campaigns.
Legal experts say a new law criminalizing child marriage should help combat the problem.
There were gaps and loopholes that existed in terms of when exactly a person could contract into a marriage legally. So by extension, however, there is need for the Criminal Law and Codification Reform Act to introduce a clear law that stipulates child marriages as an offense and also introduces sentencing guidelines for perpetrators of child marriages.
Portia Nobula is hoping other girls will not have to endure what she has. Those convicted under the new child marriage law face up to 10 years in prison, though advocates for children's rights are pushing for a harsher sentence. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Mbire, Zimbabwe.
It's time for a break. But first, do you believe criminalizing early marriage for girls under the age of 18 in Africa will end the practice? What role do we play as a society to overcome this practice? Please share your views on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is at VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp. Our number is on your screen. When we come back, we'll go to the drought-stricken region of Ethiopia, where child marriage has more than doubled according to the UNICEF.
Empowerment and humanity towards a better world.
Economic and social progress of every society.
Facts and information from key players rather than spectators in politics, business, science and technology.
City, rural, educated or underprivileged. We care and we listen to what matters to you.
Your voices are our voices.
Welcome back. You're watching Our Voices. Many different situations such as climate change, natural disasters, cultural norms, and old promises have a great impact on child marriage. The record drought in Ethiopia has led to a dramatic increase in desperate parents marrying off their children, according to the UNICEF. Reported child marriages have more than doubled in 2022. Aid groups are trying to get much-needed water and other help to drought-hit families to try to curb the trend and protect girls. Linda Giftash reports from Godi.
Unable to feed themselves or their families, people in Ethiopia's Somali region are fleeing to displacement camps in search of aid. They're also using any means to better themselves economically. Nasteho Bahar Abdi married at 14, but she had to remarry this year because her first husband failed to support her and 2 daughters.
What can I do? I have no skills to work. I did not learn. My children are suffering.
Girls getting married before they are 18 is common culturally throughout the country. The United Nations Children's Fund says 40% of Ethiopian women were married under 18. Faced with economic pressures from the drought, experts say marrying daughters can be a form of relief to families by having one less mouth to feed and gaining a bride price.
Where the drought had hit and was sort of notified as the hotspot Waridas, we saw like 63% increase. And of course, these are sort of anecdotal, what we picked up from the different Waridas and talking to the communities. But the fact that that number itself gives a pretty scary situation about children.
Waridas are districts within a state. UNICEF says surveys suggest child marriages have doubled in the region, but cases could be even higher. Families don't openly discuss the issue, and marriages aren't formally registered, because legally, the minimum age for marriage in Ethiopia is 18. Advocates say raising awareness about the risks to girls may help discourage the practice.
We are seeing where young mothers, where the malnutrition levels are very high, and the children that they are giving birth to are also sort of suffering from acute malnutrition.
Keeping children in the classroom may also help protect girls from early marriage and pregnancy.
Education is the key to combat, the early child marriage. It keeps them busy at schools. We tell parents that investing in child is something that that can help them to have a good returns than having these short term economic benefits from marriage transactions.
Abdi learned to raise livestock rather than going to school. Those skills have limited her and others like her amid the drought. But she says she wants a different future for her daughters.
I am planning for my children to teach them, take them to school when they reach school age. If Allah gives me wealth, I will teach them.
Abdi says she also encourages other girls in the community to go to school rather than wed. It's the message child rights activist Hope catches on. Linda Giftash for VOA News, Godea, Ethiopia.
Joining us to discuss how the UN is working tirelessly to bring down the number of child marriages and promote girl-child education is Hadiza Ibrahim Abba, a UNICEF child protection specialist from the Harmful Practices Department.
The UN defines a child as any person under the age of 18 years, and this is in line with Article 1 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And this convention constitutes the basis for universal recognition of specific rights for children and establishes that children actually deserve special care and attention because of their developmental process has not been completed. And this means throughout childhood and adolescence, children have different capacities and needs than adults. Having said that, children's relationship and environment can also have a deep influence on development processes.
So Hadiza, the research and the data shows that poverty and living in rural areas are more strongly associated with child marriage globally. So what has been UNICEF's approach in solving the issue of child marriage in a situation where it's seen as at the lesser of the two evils?
Thank you. UNICEF adopts multi-sectoral approaches to respond to the issue of child marriage. So there's an emphasis on investing in prevention programs, creating awareness and engaging directly with communities, parents and caregivers to address gender inequalities or harmful norms that contribute to child marriage. And in that also the promotion of gender equitable social norms, attitudes and behaviors. It's also very important to look at the legal and policy framework that exists to respond to the very high rates of child marriage. And what UNICEF does to support that is advocacy for implementing the Child Rights Act. As you might know, there's been a lot of pushback in the past in terms of implementation of the Child Rights Act, but Nigeria has come a very long way, and a lot of states are starting to implement the Child Rights Act. Also, UNICEF has been in Nigeria is currently supporting the research and the study on the economic impact, to see what that is costing. What that is costing Nigeria as a country in terms of development outcomes, public health outcomes, education outcomes, and so forth.
I'm curious to know, we've seen a decline in the number of child marriages around the world, and UNICEF has also pointed that out in many of their publications. Countries like Guinea-Bissau, Gambia, Gabon, Ghana, and Togo, where they have seen the greatest decline. And I'm wondering the similarities or the differences with country where that decline has not been as strong? And also, how is UNICEF working with religious leaders to ensure that some of the things and policies that you're advocating for are also understood on the religious level?
So, as you know, Nigeria has the third highest number of married girls in the world. So, in terms of absolute numbers, and that's about 3.3 million in the latest surveys in 2017. And at least for 3% of girls and women, so nearly 22 million, which is quite significant. In terms of the data trends, there's been a 9% decline in the prevalence of child marriage since 2003. However, because of the rapid increase in population growth, the number of child brides could increase by more than a million by 2030, and this could indeed double by 2050. And this is also as a result of the pandemic, which shows that there's an estimated 10 million more girls that would be at risk of becoming child brides. This is globally. So there are a lot of factors that threaten to roll back the progress. So it's a modest decline, and there's a need to scale up efforts and accelerate efforts if we are to see a decline or an end to child marriage by 2030, which is under the agenda for 2030, the SDGs. So coming to your second question about engagement with religious leaders, UNICEF has indeed works extremely closely with religious leaders in line with the government policies, an approach that recognizes them as key stakeholders. They need to be consulted, at all stages of programming, at the stages of design, to help religious leaders work with them through approaches to include within their sermons approaches that discourage child marriage. So this has been a very successful approach that is being replicated across the board.
Thank you so much for that. I want to jump in with another question to do with factors that may lead to the reduction in child marriages, modernization and education, which around the world seem to have organically led to the reduction of child marriage. Do you see that happening in the West African region? And if not, what can be done differently?
Absolutely. Indeed, education has been used as a delay tactic to delay child marriage. And one of the ways that UNICEF has supported this is not only strengthening education outcomes and increasing access to education, particularly to children in rural areas, but it's also emphasizing the cash transfer programs, which also encourage young people who are out of school, as well as their caregivers, their parents, to ensure increased school enrollment and attendance rates, to get literacy and life skills, numeracy skills, to give them better outcomes in life.
Seeking an education and getting married young or child marriage, are they mutually exclusive, or is there a way to substitute what would otherwise be a complete lack of education?
We're looking at the impact of child marriage. A child is somebody that is not fully developed in terms of their mental capacity to be able to make choices that have a huge impact on their life outcomes. When we look at the figures as far as the impact on public health, such as complications of early childbearing, obstructed labor, which affects an estimated 200,000 women and girls every year in Nigeria. So essentially, it's about looking at how to improve the outcomes, in the best interest of a child, and ensuring that they're put on the road to getting quality life.
It's time for a break. When we return, we'll introduce you to a survivor of early childhood marriage who is mentoring other girls in Burkina Faso not to follow in her footsteps. That's next on our Women to Watch segment. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Our Voices. It's time for our Women to Watch segment with Siminesh Yekoye. Siminesh?
Thanks, Amina, and hello, everyone. I'm happy to bring you this week's Women to Watch segment. Let's go to Africa's Sahel region, where United Nations data shows countries in the region have the highest number of child marriage in the world. Most girls in the region are married before the age of 18. VOA's Henry Wilkins reports from Burkina Faso on a former child bride who fled her 54-year-old husband and now mentors other child marriage survivors.
In the Sahel region's semi-arid lands that skirts the Sahara, countries like Burkina Faso have the highest rate of child marriage in the world. Vivienne Sawadogo, whose name has been changed to protect her identity, lives in Burkina Faso, where the UN says more than half of girls become child brides. Her family forced her into child marriage at 12. Sawadogo had been promised from birth to the man's family in exchange for a child bride his family had given to hers some years earlier.
Quand j'avais 12 ans, et je faisais la classe de CM2, on m'a donné en mariage à un homme qui avait...
I was married to a man who was about 54 years old. He had 4 wives and several children. I felt terrible because I had a strong desire to continue my studies rather than get married so early.
Une forte envie de continuer mes études que de me marier aussitôt.
So I decided to escape this curse. One morning, I left the house and walked from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., over 30 kilometers. Sadly, I was caught and taken back to the house. I was completely devastated, but I didn't give up. I made another attempt, and that night, I walked more than 40 kilometers before I found a bus to escape.
After her escape, she found refuge in a centre set up by a church for girls fleeing child marriage. She lived here for 10 years and was able to continue her education. She is now a 22-year-old university student. She has left the centre but returns regularly to mentor younger girls, like this one who also escaped through the bush alone and whose identity we are protecting.
I left the man because I didn't love him, and also he already had 3 wives and children. I have been here at the center for a few months. The center helps me with clothes, food, and also I am at school, which makes me very happy.
Cultural practices like gifting daughters to other families are common in the Sahel, as is the kidnapping of young girls for marriage. But one traditional leader in Burkina Faso says poverty is at the root of the problem.
Le fait que les filles sont données en mariage, c'est parce que les parents pensent qu'ils n'ont pas de moyens.
The need for money is a reason for people to marry their children off before the age presumed right for a girl.
Non-profit groups like Save the Children are working to eliminate child marriage, but say financial support and empowerment of the girls is an essential part of stopping it.
We believe the reasons the girls are given up for marriage is because the parents think they do not have the means to support them. For us, when a girl is given in marriage, we have to find a way to empower her.
Save the Children provides cash handouts to families to ensure girls continue their education, while Burkina Faso's government says careful monitoring by citizens is also essential to prevent child marriage.
Le Burkina a mis en place au moins 800 cellules de veille dans au moins 812 villages.
Burkina Faso has set up more than 800 watch cells in at least 872 villages to carry out communication and prevention actions. For this, we have sensitized no less than 4 million people on the phenomenon of child marriage.
But it is an uphill battle. The nun who runs the refuge centre for girls says the conflict raging across the Sahel since 2012 has only made matters worse.
This week alone, we welcomed 4 girls. There are weeks when 6 arrive, which is too much. There are already 110 girls. We thought the number would decrease, but it is worse.
Despite the obstacles, Sawadogo says escaping child marriage is vital.
My life would be miserable if I was still in that marriage. Over the last decade, I would have already had 3 or 4 children.
Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Burkina Faso.
Do you know any other woman who mentors survivors of child marriage on the continent? If so, please let us know and share your comments using the hashtag VOA Our Voices. This is what we have for this week's Woman Torch segment. Until next time, I am Submanu Shekoye.
Thanks, Seminesh. And that's it for this week. We leave you with an anthem to end child marriage entitled We Are Girls, Not Brides. It's written, composed, and sung by a group of talented girls from the Lusaka Girls' School who participate in a girls' empowerment club run by the non-profit organization Girls, Not Brides in Zambia.
We say no, don't marry us off, 'cause we are girls, not brides. Speak out, you have a voice, just speak it out, oh girl. We are girls, not brides. We know our rights, we speak them out.
On behalf of my Our Voices colleagues and everyone here at the Voice of America, I'm Amina Aliyu. Thank you for watching.